Welcome back to Change. This is the podcast where we talk all about change. Today, we're going to be diving into one of the moments that was most important in Ben's life. And Ben is one of the most inspiring people that I've met. I've gotten to know him over the last few years, and every time I come to New York City, I have to find a way to see you in some way, shape, or form. Ben is a senior learning leader at Chobani. He does a lot of leadership development work there, so we talk a lot of shop about those types of things. But he's also just a really great human being and has been involved in lots of different things outside of work, like helping find homes for animals, and has been very involved in that scene. He's also an amazing chef and is a frequent attendee at Burning Man, where at times has manned a food truck. And just overall, you've been to how many national parks?
27.
27? Yeah. So Ben is just an incredible human being that I am so excited for you all to get to know a little bit more today. So Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Megan. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be so fun. So we're going to dive right in to the deep end and ask the main question to get us started, which is, if there's one moment in your life that's changed you most as a human being, what do you think that moment is?
It's a great question, and it's hard to pinpoint a moment, especially when you're someone like me who's such a planner. I'm like, oh, well, the moment was when I created the plan that had all 15 moments in it that were going to get me to exactly where I was trying to go. But when I think about some of the big changes in my life, and there's definitely been 3 huge ones, the one moment that I'll point to, which really was a huge game changer, was when I was in the middle of navigating a career change. I didn't really know exactly how I was going to get there, but I started to figure out that I was working on the finance team in Chobani. I had worked in accounting my whole career, and I had come to the realization that I wanted to move in a different direction, and that I was really passionate about learning and development. I started out in college a psychology major. I've always been most passionate about the way people think and behave, and I wound up switching into the business school for more practical reasons and other motives that I had. And so I was feeling really stuck in terms of how to make this pivot, and I had hired a coach, and we were having a conversation, and this was probably peak stuckness for me, is what I'll call it. And it was basically, I said, well, listen, if I'm going to make this career switch, I need to get an IO psych degree, business psychology. That's going to make me qualified and allow me to do what it is that I want to do next. If I do that while I'm working, I'm going to have no life. If I do that and quit my job, I'm going to have no money. And so I don't like either of those options, hence the stuckness. And Marissa, my amazing coach, who just huge transformational impact through our work together, she said to me, "Who told you need an IO psych degree?" And I said, "Nobody, actually." I actually said that to myself, and it was really probably a form of imposter syndrome, right? of really not thinking that I really needed to have something to prove that I could do something different than I'm already doing.
Isn't that so? I mean, I think that happens so much, especially when we get stuck, is we've created all of these assumptions about what's required for us to be able to be qualified to do or try something. Like, we have to have on this piece of paper this qualification to be able to jump into something. Because remind me, how long had you been in finance before making this shift?
For over 10 years.
Yeah.
And so it was really, there's the sunken cost fallacy. I put so much time and effort into this, and I've moved my way up, and I've been good at it, and it's afforded me to be able to live a certain way, And the deeper into something you get, the harder it is to see a different way.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. You're taking you back to that moment. You're working in finance. You realize it's maybe not your life's passion. You want to do something different. What was it in that moment that made you actually make a change? Like, what tipped it over, even though you didn't have an IO Psych degree?
Well, what we spoke about after me coming to the realization that, and I think one of the big takeaways from this is that black and white thinking, that binary of it's this or that, of, well, wait, are those really the only two options, or is there's something else? And we spoke about what would happen if I just started taking some other steps, exploring different options, taking steps that weren't as big as going back to school and getting a degree, but that were steps in the right direction that I wanted to go in. And so I think what really helped me actually make that change happen was, instead of making it into this one big scary leap, it was, what's the next step? What am I going to do in the next week that's going to help move this forward? And it didn't feel like that was going to make such a difference doing these couple of little action items each week. But over the course of 6 to 8 months, when you're consistently plugging away at something, you look back and it's, wow, I actually done so much. And then all of a sudden, I do start to feel really qualified and ready to do what it is that I set out to do.
And congratulations for making the shift, because you're doing incredible work at Chobani now in the learning and development space. And it shows like how much you put in that work, both on the front end, but also like learning as you go once you get into it. Like, I think that's another thing, like, especially in entrepreneurship, right? Like, I've had my own business for 2 years, and most of the time I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I think that everybody thinks that, especially if you're successful from an outward looking perspective, that you've got to have it all figured out or something. And most people don't. Like, we're just out here trying to like figure out what the next best step is. So Marissa, your coach, sounds amazing, because it sounds like what she was really coaching you into is like, what are the micro behaviors that you can make so that you can create that larger shift that you're interested in having in your life, and you knew what direction you wanted to go, which sometimes is half the battle, right? But then creating those tiny little like James Clear atomic habits type moments that allow you to build into this new person that you've now become, which is like, what a beautiful shift to have made.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned with entrepreneurship, and I ask leaders during a workshop that I do quite often, not such a different question than that you asked me, but it's basically what in your career has led to the most growth, right? Because the workshop is about helping them develop their teams. And so I like to start out by, well, what's really been helpful for you? Because if we're prescribing something for somebody else that never worked for you, are we really on the right track? And such a high percentage of these leaders say something to the tune of, I got thrown in the deep end for something that I did not really know what I was doing, didn't feel qualified to do it, but I had to figure it out. And I wasn't left out to drown either. I had some support, and that looks different for different people. And it was just a really interesting theme that I picked up from asking that question often. And so it's can we associate that discomfort of not really knowing what we're doing with, wow, this is going to be one of those moments where I learn and grow the most.
Yeah. I want to go back for a second to something that you said when you were describing your moment of change. And you said you were like in the height of being stuck, or something to that effect, right? The worst of the stuckness. And I think a lot of the people listening to this podcast can relate to that feeling of just like being stuck. You can't figure out what's next, or maybe there's a lot of ambiguity. And also, like, our world right now is filled with constant ambiguity, change, things happening outside of our control, right? So you having gone through this experience where you made a major career shift, you felt really stuck in the moment. How do you think that now informs big changes you go through now? Or like, do you still feel stuck sometimes? And how has going through that experience several years ago changed the way that you approach things now?
Yeah, I love going to the gym. I do it every single morning, and it's not so dissimilar to that in terms of it being muscle memory and having made really big, bold, courageous moves and gone through big changes, whether it was by choice or not. It's given me a lot more confidence when I'm facing that next big decision or that big change, and the unknown is really scary, and there's just all the different fear factors of being able to look back on some of these pivotal moments in my life where it was equally, if not more challenging, and realize, oh, not only did I get to the other side of that, but future me is going to thank present me for taking that leap right now. It's gonna be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, so you're like zooming out and you're seeing these chapters of the person that you are now and what it could be for you and who you could become, and that you see that it's, even though it's like really hard in the moment, that it's worth it.
Yeah.
What kind of like an internal monologue do you have when you're in those moments? What do you say to yourself?
Well, one, when I'm having the fear of making the decision, I read a good quote recently that said, you're never going to feel ready because ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And so embracing the fact that there's not going to be this magical moment of, I feel so ready for this. It's going to be, I'm not going to feel that way. And I have to recognize that and focus on the deeper meaning behind whatever it is that's coming next.
Yeah. So you talked about having 3 moments that have been like major shifts for you. Is there another one you'd love to share?
Yeah, the first major one was when I came out and I moved across the country to do so away from everybody that I ever knew and loved. And I got out of a relationship with my girlfriend at the time to do it. And she was my best friend as well and the closest person to me. So it was just an unimaginably difficult change to make on multiple fronts. And that's one of those ones that I absolutely look back to. It really helped me with the career change because I realized that I have the ability to do hard things and do hard things that are in line with who I am and what's important to me. And I think we think about change as becoming somebody else, but I actually think a lot of change, if it's change that's coming from something that you really want, it's actually bringing yourself back to your own identity, more so than it is making you something different. And I think that's really been the case for all of these big changes in my life.
Yeah, I think so much. I mean, we all grow up in different circumstances, right? And there's a lot of different pressures, whether it's from family or society, to become like, to have life figured out, right? And to like, I don't know, you go to school and the goal is to get to the next grade, and the goal there is to graduate so that you can either, go to college or trade school or whatever and graduate there and get into a job where you keep going up the ladder, right? Like, it feels like there's always something next to be doing. And I think a lot of times, to your point, like, our identity is built off of that achievement. I love the way that you frame the idea that a lot of times when you're making these really hard choices, but they feel like ways that you can step into the next person you want to become, or like closer to who you actually are on the inside, that it's not really that you're becoming someone new, right? It really, I do think like you're just getting closer to what feels genuine to you in that moment. And I don't know, I think we change so much over the course of our lives anyway. And so what feels really natural to us or like really close to us at 15 years old is going to be different than what's close to us at 25 or 35 or 45 or 55 up and up, right? And so I think one of the things I really like that I hear you say is like, you're open to figuring out who it is you even want to be, and then making those sometimes really challenging decisions to make sure that you can become that, so that you feel close to who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs that hold us back from doing that. Some people think of work as it's practical, and absolutely, like, you need it to pay the bills, to support your family in a lot of cases, to support yourself. And sometimes I think it can feel greedy, or we don't have a sense of self-worth that says we're worth more. We're worth doing something that really lights us up and that we really feel is in line with who we are. And so just breaking those down and then being able to take steps to getting there.
Thank you for sharing about your second moment too here. Tell me a little bit more about, like, you're in the moment, you've moved across the country. Did you know many people here in New York, or like, tell me about the newness of trying something that was way outside of your comfort zone?
Well, I was living in New York City, and then really, so another big moment of that sparked the change was I went on Birthright. I was out of my environment. You kind of talked about, we go through school, we go through each grade. You're kind of going through the motions a lot of times, and when you're in something, it's really hard to see it. And when I stepped out of it and went somewhere different in a different environment with different people, I really was able to see sort of back into my life a lot more clearly. And that was when I first really came to terms and acknowledged that I was gay to myself. And I came out to somebody on the trip because it felt very safe. They weren't involved in my life back at home. And then as soon as I came home, I shared with my girlfriend at the time, because as soon as I was able to admit it to myself, it felt dishonest not to share with her. And a huge takeaway from that was the importance of stepping outside of your environment to see back into it. And we talk about how I've been to different national parks and Burning Man, and there's just been a lot of those. It's not running away from your problems, but it's just stepping outside that default, that kind of autopilot that can kick in when you're just going through the motions of your day-to-day life can really help. It creates those moments of reflection.
Yeah, it's a pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
I feel that very strongly when I travel. I have young kids at home. They're 6 and 8, which is amazing. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be their parent. And also, like, I still want to show them that I can own my own business and have a career, and that they're capable of doing the same thing someday. Like, I think it's important that I have both. And one of the things that I really appreciate about traveling for work, like just about a month ago, I was in London, and what I really love about traveling internationally, particularly when I'm solo traveling by myself, is that I can't lean on anybody else. Like, if you and I traveled together, I could have the comfort of like always being with you to like lean on. But when I'm by myself, I'm like fully immersed in a different culture and somewhere else where I just have to observe. I feel uncomfortable. I don't know all the answers. I feel like those experiences, though, to your point, when you get these pattern interrupts and you feel uncomfortable, and even simple things like walking down the street feels different to you, it gives you this different perspective with which you can then look at yourself and say, what are the things that I really love about what I'm doing right now? What are the things that I wish I could change? And am I just doing something because it feels comfortable? Am I doing something because it feels like the right thing, that's like what's best for me? Or are there real changes that I want to be making? And I think those pattern interrupts, like, you don't have to go to a foreign country or on like some sort of a large excursion to get that. I think there's like parts of that we can build into every day. So what else do you do to like keep that perspective when you're living your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that I am thinking about more proactively now, because it's important to be able to create those moments, right? I don't want to have to go travel thousands of miles away to always be able to get some insights. I found journaling to be really helpful. It's something that I love writing, and I haven't yet developed a consistent habit of journaling, but I've been doing it more recently over the last few weeks, and that is giving me a lot of it's getting things out of my head and onto paper, and that just sometimes just helps provide clarity. It helps makes things real, and that's a small one that's been helpful.
Yeah. I think even for me, like going to a coffee shop and saying to myself, like, I'm going to have no devices and just sit and drink my coffee for 15 minutes. and just look at everybody around me just for 15 minutes. And then I can go back to work and life and all of the things. I think because we're so device heavy nowadays, even just having that like little unplug where we just people watch and like, I don't know, I always get this like when I'm traveling in particular, I feel like going through the airport, I think it's such a good reminder of how many people there are in the world that are living their lives and their paths. And I think when I see everybody going about their day or when I'm people watching, I just get this realization of like, there's so many different ways to live life. And I don't know, do I like the way that I'm living mine? And most of the time the answer is yes. And then some of the times there's like that little niggle in the back of your brain that's like, you know what, there is something that I'd love to change. And I'm in full power to make those changes. It might not happen today or tomorrow, but to your point about like the little minor actions, like there are ways to get unstuck no matter how stuck you feel, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why they say sometimes people have their best ideas in the shower, because you're device free. You're giving yourself time to just to think, and we're so consumed with everything that's happening, especially on our phones and just with busyness, that there's part of us that is kind of a little bit trapped and needs to be unlocked a little bit.
Yeah, I talked to someone not long ago that has a whiteboard on their shower wall, and I feel like that is really brilliant, actually.
It's amazing.
Because to your point, like I think there are those places that are like these, like honestly, working out is one of those places for me too, right? Because you can get, it's like, where are the places in your life where things go quiet? And especially if you're a really high achieving, ambitious person, and your brain is always on the go, it's really hard for us to get that zoom out moment when our brain is just constantly figuring out exactly how things need to be in place so that we can get everything done that's on our plate.
Yeah.
And so it's like, where can you find those moments where your brain does get into that shift into a creative mode? Not necessarily just creative of like making art, but like creative and expansive.
Yeah, I think you and I are wired similarly and crave that space and time because of how focused we can be on all of the things that need to get done.
Yeah, it's so true. So if someone is going through a really big transition in their life, like maybe they feel really stuck or they want to make a career change, or there's something that in their life they really do want to change, but they just don't even know how to start, what's the best advice you could give them?
It's probably just to do it, because by not doing it, you have no new information, you have no new data to work with. And so oftentimes if it's a change that you're ruminating on, you're gonna keep ruminating on it because you don't have anything else that informs whether it's the right decision or not. And so by just leaning in, especially, and it always depends on the kind of change, but I talk to a lot of people about career shifts, and I always say, you know, you're always going to be qualified to do exactly what you're doing right now. And if you go take a chance and try to do something else, it's not that you lose your qualifications and you can't go back to what you're doing right now. So especially, and unfortunately not all changes are totally reversible, but by trying, you get, no matter if it works out or not, you get more information. You learn something and it helps you get closer to wherever it is that you're trying to go.
Yeah. Just taking that next step a lot of times brings clarity into where you're going beyond that. And I think that's sometimes where people get stuck too, right? Is like, if we can't, especially if you're like a futurist or A-type and you are a planner and you like to know exactly where you're going, sometimes I feel like when you can't see the end goal quite yet, it's really easy to get stuck. And I like your advice of like, I mean, it sounds so easy, right? But then in practice, it's hard.
So hard.
It's so hard to just like take the next step, especially if it's into the unknown and you have no idea like what's really next. I mean, are you scared when you don't know?
Absolutely. That's what often holds me and I think a lot of other people back. But I think standing at the cliff is scarier than actually making the leap. Because you're really just, you don't know. You're just paralyzed with indecision, and the fear of the unknown is still there. You're not actually getting rid of the fear by not doing anything, and actually you're increasing the fear because you're sending signals to your body by avoiding or not doing it that you're reinforcing whatever that fear is. When you go for it and do it, and you realize the fear doesn't manifest itself or it's not as bad as your worst case scenario, that's how you overcome it. And that's kind of getting at what I was saying before about having the confidence to realize that even though it's unknown, that doesn't mean it's going to be bad or the worst case scenario. It's just unknown, and we kind of just have to get really comfortable living in uncertainty.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things, like myself too, like being in entrepreneurship, like one of the things that I think was really paralyzing at the very beginning when I first started my own business was, well, number one, how am I going to get clients? Like, what is that going to look like? And then number two, like, even when you get clients, how do you get the clients a year from now? How do you know what's coming? And the answer is you don't always. And I think one of the things that has been freeing for me is I visualize like this path that's out in front of me. Like, you've been to a lot of national parks, so let's pretend we're in one of them, and like we don't have a trail map, and we see that there's like this trail that's up ahead, and we don't even know where it ends. And the thing that I kind of like have been noticing that helps is, to your point, like fear is never going to go away. It's always part of this, especially when things are unknown. Our brains are hardwired. Like, you know, if we're looking at the neuroscience around it, right? Like the amygdala reaction happens for a reason. Its purpose is survival, to keep us safe, right? When we're in those moments of fear, what I've been doing is I've noticed the fear, and I like notice it, and I on purpose like put it on the side and pretend like it's a tree or something, like on the side, or maybe a bear, I don't know, something that's on the side, and I like mentally wave to it and like say like, I see you, you're there, but I'm gonna keep going anyway, right? One of the ways it's been freeing for me is I don't feel like I have to have all the answers anymore. Like maybe my path that emerges, even if I don't know where it's ending yet, maybe because I don't know, it could be greater than something I could even possibly like imagine myself. And so I think that's part of what I've been learning lately too, is like, yeah, the scary is terrifying. The unknown is so scary and terrifying, but the unknown is also where possibility exists, because in our day-to-day, when we're always doing the exact same thing, we're going to get the exact same outcome. But when we try something new, man, it's scary. But like that's where like we live. That's where we grow. Like to the point about the question you ask all your Chobani leaders, right?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, that's such a good unlock in terms of being able to grapple with uncertainty of just, we're wired to go to the worst case scenario and the fear around uncertainty, but there's so much upside that we can focus on as well.
Okay, so are you ready for the speed round?
Born ready.
Okay, let's do it. All right, so the first question. What is one thing that you used to hate, but now you love?
Cooking.
Cooking? That actually shocks me, because you're like a brilliant chef.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing at first, and I don't like things that I'm not good at, you know, and so but then I had to, because I was living on my own. I couldn't afford to be eating out every meal, and step by step, a little better over time, and now I love it. It's one of my no devices activities, like a shower, where I'm just in the moment, I'm enjoying myself, and it's a lot of fun.
What's your signature dish?
I love making salads. It's my favorite thing to make. Just combining different textures and flavors and just all different kinds of ingredients to make a really good salad. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Okay, what is one book or movie that's changed your perspective?
Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. Absolutely.
The Queen,
yes.
Brené Brown, yes.
Absolutely. This just been a very transformational book for me.
What about it has spoken to you the most?
The section on empathy really got to me, because I always considered myself a very empathetic person. And I read that chapter or a couple of chapters, and I was like, oh my gosh. It just really gave me such a different way of thinking about it and approaching it, and very grateful for it, honestly.
Yeah, anything by Brené Brown is amazing. Her newest book, Strong Ground, I just started. It is amazing.
Ordered it last week.
Really? Oh my gosh, yeah, it is so good. Let's do this question. It's not exactly a speed round question, but I love to end every single interview with this. If there's one thing that you could change about our world right now, what would you change?
I feel like I have so many answers to this question, but I'll go with, I wish that everybody leaned into talking to strangers. People being more willing to connect with get out of their comfort zone and just say hi or start a conversation with somebody that they don't know. I think it could create a lot of bridges, and just there's I think we're in a loneliness crisis, and I think we would all benefit from more connection day to day. And when we go out of our comfort zone to do that, I think it's very rewarding.
Yeah. Honestly, on the way over here, we were walking through New York City, and there was a moment where it's a beautiful fall day today. It's like 65 degrees, absolute perfection outside. And so my sister is with me because she's helping produce this podcast. And I turned and I said to her, can we just have a moment for this New York weather? And there was a male person walking past, like in that exact moment, and like U.S. Postal Service. And as they walked past, he turned and said to us, like, yeah, isn't this just the best weather? And he gave me like the nicest smile and just said, like, have a great day. And I was like, it was such a beautiful moment. And my sister turned to me and she's like, I love New York. And I was like, I know, I love people. But it's interesting. I actually did some research on this at one point. The centers in our brain, like that trigger dopamine and serotonin, like when you give someone that you love a hug, right? Those same centers, when we have a conversation with a stranger, fire in almost the exact same way. And so even when we talk and have those like little minor connections with people, we still get that same like rush of emotions in our brain. So I love that that's your answer, because I do think because so many of us are so lonely, and there's such a prevalence of, being online for so much of our lives, whether it's for work or social media or what have you, like I do think there's just this really beautiful thing of like saying hi to somebody you don't know, or taking an extra beat, as you're checking out at a restaurant to wish somebody a great day or whatever it might be. But just those like little micro moments of connection are so beautiful.
And now that I think about it, I actually think that will help anyone on their change journeys, right? Because really what this is it's a fear of awkwardness, it's a fear of rejection. You reach out to somebody and it's not reciprocated. And so it's kind of like you spoke about, Megan, the fear of the unknown. I don't know this person. I don't know how they're gonna react. And just exposure therapy, and doing it and realizing, oh wow, there's actually a lot of upside. It could be really awkward for 30 seconds, or I could have just met my best friend, which is actually how I met one of my best friends last year. Was just went up to him and said, hey, how's it going? We've been in all the same places this weekend on the beach, and just wanted to say hi. And a year later, he's my best friend in the world. So.
Oh my gosh, isn't that such a beautiful thing that you never know who you're gonna meet. You never know if they're gonna be your next mentor, or your next best friend, or your next partner in business, or what. I don't know. There's so many different opportunities to just continue to grow and build who we are as people, and those relationships are one of the most fundamental parts of being human.
Absolutely.
That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's just been lovely having this conversation with you out loud on the podcast. If people want to learn more about you, where's the best place to get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. On LinkedIn, Ben Bergon. Send me a message. If I try to always pay it forward, because there were just so many people who I reached out to when I was navigating my career, and I try to, when people reach out, I always try to pay it forward. If it's just a conversation or a resource or something, we all can use a little bit of help. And so reach out to me, say hi, let me know how I can support you, because I'm very passionate about helping people with their careers.
That's very kind. Thank you so much for being here, Ben. It was great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Megan.